thank you, Dr. Silva, for starting us on the cutting edge. Isn't that true? Yeah. So we next will, we're indeed very honored and just delighted to have Dr. Caroline Ho to give us the plenary address. Dr. Ho is an English language specialist at the English Language Institute of Singapore, or ELIS. It's a new institution from the part of the Ministry of Education. She has the PhD in Applied Linguistics from the University of Birmingham, and she has been involved in primary, secondary, and pre-university teacher education and research with the National Institute of Education, served as specialist inspector for English language with the MOE, and also taught for several years at a junior college. Her research interests include discipline-specific communication, design, research in new media, and writing and argumentation pedagogy. Her work has appeared in Computers in Education, Computer-Assisted Language Learning, Journal of Applied Linguistics, Innovation in Language Learning and Teaching, among other publications. I would like now to invite Dr. Ho, and please join me in welcoming her.
Thank you very much, Heidi. Very good morning to one and all. I'm really delighted to be here this morning. I was just telling Rita and some of the other faculty how excited I was just looking at your program to see the range of the studies that many of you are involved in. Many moons ago, some of you may not be aware, I was back in IE. In those days it was called Institute of Education, at the Bukit Timah campus, straight after several years of teaching, embarking on my own research. And at that time, make a guess as to how many other postgraduate student researchers there were. This was way back in the 1990s. Any guesses? This was the MA in Applied Linguistics by research. I had no other student researchers. There was no community like what you have right now. I was the only one. This was the MA by research. So I think the fact that you have grown and it's such a vibrant community that I can see just from your faces walking in this morning how excited you must be in sharing your ongoing work. I think that's really great. And I really have to commend Rita, David, and the organizing committee for keeping this going. It's the fourth year running now, and I think that's great. So well done, and I hope that you'll continue to fall in love with research as much as all of us do. I come from the English Language Institute of Singapore, ELIS for short. We'd like to think that we are Alice in Wonderland, you know, where things are rosy and nice, and it's like a magical world. But honestly, in working with the schools that we have, it's been an exciting journey. It's been exhausting as well. But one of the things that's been very close to my heart is how closely we work with NIE all this while. We see ourselves as the younger sister of ELL. And I think if it's in research, that's certainly in one area where we have a very close partnership with NIE, in particular with ELL. I'll talk a little bit more about the kind of work that we do as I go along in my address, but please feel free to share with me any queries that you may have if you'd like to know more about ELIS. I'd like to share with you this morning the perspective that MOE takes with regard to how we view research in schools, and in particular where ELIS is concerned, how we actually engage our practitioners at the ground, the teachers at the primary, secondary, and pre-university level in school-based research, and what it really means to inquire into their own practice. So is there a difference between research and inquiry? We'd like to also share with you a framework that we found have worked with us when we engaged our teachers in embarking on investigations of their own. And this is the teacher inquiry and the knowledge building cycle, which we will unpack as we go along. Against all this, we'd like to see our school-based research against the wider landscape of what's happening in MOE, and in particular in terms of the strategic research thrusts and the underlying principles that guide our work with schools. I'm not too sure whether many of you are aware of areas in this direction, but I think it's important for all of us, whether as faculty or student researchers, to keep in mind the broader landscape. I'm also going to share with you a case in point of a school with which I've been working very closely. This is a school in the northern part of Singapore that's embarking on disciplinary research, which is a relatively new area for us in the MOE. And I'd like to use this as an example to show you how we actually translate some of the underlying principles and the guiding framework that we have in mind in working at the ground with teachers in a secondary school. We'll also hear from various practitioners at various levels, primary, secondary, and JC, with regard to their perspective of having engaged in research, what their own thoughts are, what their concerns are, and in particular, how it has helped them individually. And we'll end off with some recommendations that we have made to schools who have worked with us. What is research? If I were to ask any of you here in this room, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of research, what would that be? Your papers? The next journal that you're targeting? Funding? Certainly, I think all these are very much concerned with research. I don't know if you do this, where you begin with a targeted outcome in mind and then start looking for the data to fill in the gaps and to make it appear to work towards that intended outcome. But certainly, I think this is something that we've been thinking through a lot, particularly at the MOE. What does it really mean to engage in research? And what is it that the teachers take away with them